Hey guys, welcome to the definitive ranking of the Minish cap for the Game Boy Advance.
Yes.
The Minish cap. This one, we were pretty excited about doing this one.
Yeah, because it's always a topic of conversation on our staff.
Yeah.
We're always in our Discord. You should come join the Zelda Dungeon Discord. This is like one of the three things we're always fighting about for some reason. Because it's kind of a deep cut Zelda game.
Is it really?
Well, it's not like when people go, oh, I love The Legend of Zelda. They're like, I love Twilight Princess. I love Ocarina of Time, Wind Waker. Like, you don't often hear like the Minish cap is, it's out there, but
yeah, I guess in our little Zelda Dungeon ecosystem, where all games are treated equally. Not really,
well,
almost.
There's some, but
yeah, we're talking about the Minish cap, and it had been a good almost 4 years since I've played like a significant portion of this game.
Okay.
How about yourself?
So, well, actually, I think my experience with it has always kind of colored my opinion of it over the years. Like, I didn't have a Game Boy Advance really at the time, and then when I finally did play it, it was like it's another one that I joined the staff, and I was like, okay, I want to play all the Zelda games. And I think I played it on an emulator or something, and I just never really got into it that way.
Okay.
This is not, yeah. It's different to me than just playing the game on either a handheld or on, I guess, the Wii U.
I played this on an emulator, 15 years ago.
Uh-huh.
And I'm going to get into that. Okay. That actually had an effect on my gameplay this time around.
Maybe it did for me too. Well, anyway.
Little thing about it.
Then more recently, I've played it. I played it. We did 1 year at the marathon. We played like kind of a newbie run of it, and I played it. Kind of struggled through it. I practiced it beforehand, but that's not like the way to experience a game, re-experience it.
There's no, right way to experience a game.
Basically, this was my first time kind of sitting down with it for real and just kind of like trying to take it in for what it is. So
let's jump right into it. The world of the Minish cap. We both agree. We gave it I guess a little bit on the lower end of the scale, a 2 out of 5.
I think it's all right for sure. I want to say, like, there are charming aspects of this world that tie maybe a little bit more to the style and the vibe of the game in general. Like, I had that, like, I think the main town in the game is very charming. There's all these cute characters.
A lot of people, actually.
A lot of people. And
it might be the most populated town in any Zelda game.
Of NPCs you can interact with.
Right, yeah.
If you take out
Twilight Princess. Counting the Twilight Princess Castle Town.
Yeah.
There's more guys in this town than I think in any of the Breath of the Wild town. Maybe Gerudo Town has more people, but it's close. Yeah.
So there's a lot of charm to the world for sure, and especially like going and seeing all the like Minish areas where you see the smaller version of stuff. Like the shoe shop and the library or other parts of the world. I really enjoy that aspect to it. I think there's something more that influenced our score, which is more of how like you explore the world. That I don't find as fun.
Yeah, I feel the world. It gives me almost like a Super Mario 64 kind of vibe.
Okay.
Like it's like there's almost like paintings. It's like you jump in. Okay, this is the Minish Forest. They're all extremely distinctive, but they're like the way it's connected is kind of strange to me. Like I don't really like wandering around.
A little
this
disconnected, I guess.
And we'll get to this in a bit more of the pacing and progression of like like areas are literally locked away, and you unlock them one at a time, and it's and I
especially wasn't too keen on that.
But I think the world its main, like, it's the gimmick of the game is the Minish, and there are, I mentioned, a ton of characters in this game. Do you really remember any of them?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, why not?
Like, there's a few of them in there that are memorable, but like I didn't really like I didn't make any connection with any of these characters. Like,
that's fair. Yeah, I didn't really either.
And like, there's a few of the distinctive looking Minish or Picori, but they're like, I don't know. I never really liked the character or like remember a character outside of Ezlo, who's like,
Ezlo's pretty memorable. Yeah,
he's like the star of the show.
Yeah, for
better
sure.
Or for worse.
I was sort of thinking about the way the way all the sections of the world kind of reminded me, because they sort of reminded me of Skyward Sword.
Okay. Yep.
The world sort of reminded me of Skyward Sword had an interconnected world, because like instead of more of I think of some of my favorite games kind of have like a more openness to them, and then you kind of like interact with specific points to progress, or there's puzzles within them. This is, you go to a new area, and it's to get from entering the area to the dungeon, it's like a massive overworld puzzle.
Yeah.
Kind of like in Skyward Sword.
Yeah.
Which I can see the appeal of, because there are a lot of fun puzzles on that journey and stuff like that. But overall, for being like a kind of big world that I want to explore, it didn't have that at all, because of, we'll talk about the progression where you kind of, like, it actually, in the beginning and then through the rest of the game, kind of discouraged exploration for me a little bit, because every place I tried to go, it was like, well, you can't go here. You can't go here. I'm like, okay, like, then I'm just going to follow the straight path. Same thing in the actual town itself. There was a lot of like, this shop's not open. This shop's not open. Come back later. And I'm like, okay, maybe the game will tell me when the shop's open, because I'm tired. I got tired of checking, you know, so I'm not going to check anymore.
Yeah.
So there's some mini games and stuff like that I didn't really. I did do some of them, but I didn't really experience, just because I felt like it was kind of getting annoying to go see. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, we're going to jump back into that when we get to the pacing, but let's move forward to the art style, or the graphics, I guess, and the art style. I first like to point out that I love the official artwork for this game. Yeah,
I didn't totally think of it, and then our buddy Corey, who does all our thumbnails for these, he was like, you know, he makes it out of the official artwork, and he sent me a whole bunch of them, and he was like, which one should I use? And I know he loves this game, and I picked one. He's like, yeah, you know, there sure is a lot of great official art, isn't there?
Yeah.
Which is a great appeal to us, because we usually talk about the official art.
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
They're great pieces. Yeah.
I love the one that stands out to me is the one where like Link is like a deer in headlights looking at an ice block with a small key or a boss key inside of it.
Yeah.
I love that one. I know.
I discovered some too, because we did our Deepwood Shrine video, and it's got that great one of the giant Chew and Link like.
Yeah. Right. And just like talking about the sprites and the actual art, like this is a bit of a throwback to old Zelda Dungeon fans. Back like 12 years ago, I think, we had a layout at Zelda Dungeon that was 100% based on Minish Cap sprites. It was a Temple of Droplets theme where it had a lily pad, and there was all the characters. There was even a block pushing puzzle in the header.
Wow. That had to have been very current at the time.
No, it was a few years late.
That's fine.
But clearly it had made an impact on us, and I think it's a really bright, vibrant looking game, and I like it.
Yeah, I used to not like the sprite work in this. But I kind of warmed up to it. One reason was I kind of realized, like, every time I had played it recently, like in marathon prep and stuff like that, is playing like on the big TV in there, and I always thought, like, this doesn't look very good. And then I was like playing on the Wii U gamepad, and it, like, you know, it's more closer to the resolution. I'm like, oh, these look sharp. You know what I mean? Like,
okay.
Like, it almost was hindered by the fact that I got a console release in a way. But I did start to like it. A lot more. It's very colorful and charming. There's a couple of small things I don't really like. Like, I don't like some of the one-to-one transfers from other games.
Okay.
Like, I don't like the moblins in this that are just like, let's make the win. You know, like the choose work, for example. But a lot of times when they do that, I just think it looks weird and awkward. I don't know. It just feels like it doesn't fit.
Okay.
But a lot of like the more original character designs that kind of, you know, it's clearly drawing on the Wind Waker toon style, but doing its own thing. Even like Link himself, I think that all looks really good. But the ones that are just like literally like you copy and paste from the game, you know, artistically speaking, I never got into. But I realize now playing this that the game there's a lot less of that than I remembered. So
okay.
So I gave it a 4 because I thought it was great.
Yeah, very cute looking game too.
It's very cute.
I don't know if it has the same charm as like the Oracle of Ages and Oracle of Seasons sprites that like that old, like more simplistic
I
look?
always like that more, though I did give it the same score.
Yeah.
But that's more of a sign of, like, before I probably wouldn't have given this a 4 if you had just asked me out of the blue, like,
Yeah.
I don't know, 1 to 5 rank. Yeah, I'd be like, it's okay, I guess. But
Yeah.
I like it.
Really like the art. So let's jump over to and I should mention that the art style was the highest rated by both the community and the staff as well.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
So let's talk about the story. There's
Yeah.
a lot more story in this than I like originally remembered.
Okay.
Like I felt maybe a little too much in the early game too, like some of the backstory and what's going on.
It's comparatively, it's really not that bad, but I guess it does feel like that when you're playing. For some reason, like the smaller, the handheld games, when there's a little bit more story, it does feel like a lot.
Yeah.
But I didn't really think it was that bad.
Okay, did you like remember the story and did you like dive into it at all?
I remembered it, and then I was like, okay, there's got to be a little bit more to it than I remember, but I didn't engage with it as much as I thought I would. To me, I gave it a similar score, I think, to like Spirit Tracks.
Okay.
Which to me, both games, and there's some other games I gave a similar score, where it's got a nice simple story that is it. You know, you move through the game like, and it's doesn't overstay its welcome or anything, and it's totally enough that it tells a nice little story, but it's not like one that I personally connected with or anything.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'm okay. Like I don't really think Zelda in general tells good stories.
I don't think it really should inject more story or anything, but yeah.
I did like some of the like oddball lore that's thrown into this. I remember, by the way, when this game came out, there was a lot of in the Zelda community, the theory community, really, they were like, which game comes first? Because at the time it was like Ocarina of Time was the first game, and the idea of any game coming before Ocarina of Time was like blasphemy. Like this is the beginning. But then, like, you know, people are like, is the Minish Cap is the first game? Is this the first game? But that there's like a lot of like little things. I don't even know if these are meant to be part of the big lore, but like the art, like it tells you that the Picori created the Armo statues in the world.
Yeah.
Like little things like that. Like, you know,
that is fun to think about, actually. Yeah.
It's like, oh, that's why these things are in a Link to the like in a different game or something.
Right.
Yeah. One thing about the story that doesn't really make sense with it being first is there are moblins in this game.
Oh, right.
Moblins are made after Ganon's, you know, his vision, his resemblance.
Again, it just doesn't.
Who cares though?
Right. Well, they probably weren't really considering where this takes place on the timeline or whatever. Anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, to me, they do just feel weird in this game. But I don't know if that has anything to do with it.
It's kind of like Oracle of Ages and Oracle Seasons, which were all Capcom games, Minish Cap as well. Like they made this as like a compilation game almost of the Zelda series, where they've got like little things from all over the place. All the Tingle Brothers are in this game, like you know. So the story, I think they like the little tiny things are all over the place too.
To me, it does feel weird. Like it's almost like, you know, where there's smoke, there's fire. It's like when there's moblins, there's Ganon. I know there are games without him that have moblins, but it kind of like Link's Awakening kind of makes sense. Anyway, I also did think like there. I remember back in that time there was a lot of like, oh, this is where Link gets his hat.
Yeah, we needed that.
Just so silly to me.
Because why would heroes have hats, right? Yeah. Okay. Well, moving onward to the pacing and the progression, and this is one that I gave. One of the lower scores that I gave it a 2, and I think it has. We kind of touched on this earlier. It has a bit of that almost Twilight Princess vibe to it, where it's like it's not. This is not an exploration based game, really. Like the first half of it, because there's nothing to explore. It's literally like it. Like if you played this game, I played this game, and like 4 other people played this game. The first 30% of this game is virtually identical. We might go in other directions to see that we can't do stuff, but it's like you can't do anything, and the game pushes you and then blocks off stuff along the way, which I don't necessarily think is always an awful thing.
No, I actually was thinking, because of, you know, I mentioned like the Skyward Sword type overworld. It reminded me almost of the dungeons in Wind Waker, where it's like they have these types of puzzles that are more involved than maybe certain puzzles in like Ocarina of Time that they're trying to present to you, but they want it to like be based off of each other. So it's like it almost requires, it doesn't necessarily, but almost requires like the linearity of like, you've seen this puzzle. Now here's like the next step of it, the next level, you know, and they kind of build off each other. That's how the overworld is kind of too. It's like you learn, you know, okay, I can do this, but now I can do this, you know? So that's kind of how I feel about it, is like, well, we designed this part of the world for you to come to later, but it's like, which most Zelda games do, but they like really honed in on that. So it's like, you almost can't, it's like, you just it's not worth it to even come here. Yeah. And they don't, you know, it's not worth it to really even put anything there for you to come see. So just block it off, you know?
Yeah. There are, I would say, like the progression of the game, it is a little bit formulaic at some point. So you kind of mentioned earlier, you go to a region, you kind of do a little overall portion of that region, you do the dungeon, then like you go up to the like Mount Crenel, you scale up the mountain, you know, you get the, it's like, there's
that's kind of why I had it as a 3, because it reminded me similarly of like I don't know, like Spirit Tracks or something. Again,
a lot of games are actually like,
most Zelda games have that, but this is where it's like, it almost felt down to a formula, but it's still like, there was nothing like until later, and nothing that felt like too much of like a slog or anything. Like it moved all right at an okay pace, I thought.
I feel that there were two portions that were, one, the quest to get the flippers was a little bit much for me. Where
is this the books?
The book quest.
I really wasn't a fan of that. No.
Yeah, it goes on maybe a little. It reminded me a little bit of getting the sky books in Twilight Princess before City in the Sky. It's like this is a pretty bulky portion for, at that point you're more than halfway through the game, and maybe a little too long, and not quite as annoying. But the little quest to get the Pegasus boots felt like that little fetch quest was a little lengthy.
Okay,
as well.
No, I thought it was cute. I felt like this game was somehow too short, but felt too long at times.
Okay,
like just because like I do wish there was a little bit more to the world and maybe a couple more dungeons or whatever, and I don't know if I would add much to the story, but it felt like even then they felt like they stretched the story at the same time at certain moments. It wasn't that bad, but then at the same time, like there were parts where I was like, I kind of want this part to be over. So it's very weird. It was a very weird feeling, but overall, I thought it moved around okay.
Yeah,
I think one good example too with the progression is I never had like a big aha moment, like getting a item. Maybe this will tie more into items, but like getting an item and being like, oh, now this part of the world is open. Like I think of in the beginning as an example of just being like, I can't go anywhere. Okay, I'll go, just go to the dungeon. Go to the dungeon and get the, you get the item and whatever. And I'm like, okay, now what do I do? And then they go, okay, now you need to go over there, and here's bombs, which is the key you need to go over there. So basically it's like, okay, so like, it's like the item you need to progress, they just give it to you and they tell you need to go there. It was the thing holding you back. It doesn't feel like you figured something out or anything.
Okay.
It's go over to Mount Crenel, you need bombs to get there, here's some bombs, It's like, okay. Or I even thought of another small part where you couldn't do the thing, like they were blocking you at Lon Lon Ranch to do the key part, and I was like, why can't I?
Think because they're literally standing in front of the door at one point.
And I'm like,
at one point the door's locked and nobody's there.
Yeah, and I'm like, I think I need to like do this right now, and then I go talk to someone, and then they were like moved. Yeah, it's like, I hit that. That's it.
There's another spot in Hyrule Town. You can't get to the southwest corner because the dog is just standing there, and he just randomly moves after you beat the Cave of Flames. Like, or you can go as a Minish and you can talk to him, then he moves. But before then, he just literally stands there, and then he starts moving. But it's like, why is this blocked off?
It's a little bit, it feels like arbitrary borders,
Yeah, oh yeah, there are definitely invisible walls all over the place in this game that get removed at arbitrary moments.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing most Zelda games employ. I just feel like this one masks it a little bit less, if that makes sense. Yeah. So, yeah.
So let's talk about the gameplay and the combat. And I was like a bit mixed on this one personally. And this is undoubtedly going to flow into the abilities disproportionate to me because the combat and the abilities go kind of hand in hand. I felt that it feels okay.
Yeah.
It feels. I don't think it feels as smooth as some of the 2D games that came before it.
I felt like speed and feeling wise, it compares a little bit more to like the Link's Awakening remake.
Yep.
But where in that,
I see that.
I don't remember what I gave that, but I probably similar score, but I defended it a little bit more because I felt like it felt intentional, very like tactile, like you felt like this thing. Whereas when it doesn't click with me in this game, like I feel like heavy and like slower.
Okay.
I don't want to say clunky. That might be, but it's kind of getting at that. But at the same time, they balance it out where nothing that's like coming at you is too much of a threat, really.
Okay.
So like, you know, if I felt that way, but I was taking on some of these more intense enemies in like Oracle of Seasons or something, like I'd be toast. But it scales appropriately in this game. But then by that, it just kind of feels like a slow kind of easy experience, you know?
Yeah. Well, I think some of the more difficult enemies, like the Dark Nuts that you fight, like I still don't really understand how to fight some of these things.
Yeah.
Because like
that might just kind of like try to jump over them, and I'm like, oh, I think I got it.
Before you get the rocks, like I like dash. You can just dash through them. That's a strategy, and then just attack them from like why that works. I don't know.
Yeah, it never feels great. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a little awkward fighting some of the enemies. I feel like I don't really know why I'm winning sometimes against some like in particular the Dark Nuts are very awkward. They're really the only menacing base enemy, I think.
I do think with I think the one part that it feels tuned towards, and this is another category, is maybe like the bosses. Like I felt like the bosses all felt really fun, like from a game feel perspective. So maybe it was worth it there. But from just the average like walking around and stuff, I felt kind of slow. You can roll around, but I also feel like the rolling feels awkward.
You go like super fast when you roll. Actually, I think this is more benefits of rolling than any other game.
But it also like I don't know. It's something
I don't know
about.
If it's a good thing, by the way.
I don't know. I don't know if it's the rolling is tweaked right. If like the distance you roll or the speed or how like so there's something there that I can't describe because I'm not like a game genius. But it just doesn't feel good to me. None of it feels bad. I feel like Zelda games, at least I think I said similar with Twilight Princess, where it's like there was like even the wolf stuff I didn't love, if it at least felt fine.
Yeah.
And that's how I feel about this, where it's like it passes a certain quality threshold that Nintendo has in their games.
Yeah.
Even the very worst feeling games usually feel okay.
Yeah. What about like I do enjoy like the combat I think was very I'm lukewarm about it. It was good. Not great, not bad, but like I do like some of the puzzles, and I like the creativity of the main gimmick of the game with the Minish. And this comes into play with more of like some of the side quests too. Like you find these little holes or like places, and you're like, how do I get here? And then like you realize you can walk like 6 screens over, and there's a Minish, but it's like there's little tunnels.
Those are kind of cute. Yeah.
And sometimes after you do some Kinstone fusions, new things open up in the overworld. There's like lily pads here. Like I like that kind of navigation, and some of that is more like puzzle oriented. So some of those
there's a lot of charming puzzles, especially ones tied to the items. I think they're in certain not all the items, but some of them had some pretty cute puzzles that I really liked. So
and I mean the Minish Cap came right after Wind Waker, so the idea of the Deku Leaf like existed, but like I think this kind of carried that torch over a little bit more. Floating on as like I like that kind of stuff.
I didn't like that as much. I felt like it felt a little awkward or something. But okay. Yeah. It was cute.
But to me, this flows right into the items and abilities, and I was torn on this one.
Okay.
Because the abilities, it feels like they pulled base abilities off.
Yeah.
And then gave them to you as rewards, as if like that's supposed to be like the base spin attack is not there. You can't dash with your sword.
Yes, that. Oh, when I figured that out, that like really bummed me out. What is the point of the Pegasus boots at that point? I didn't use them,
to run, but
especially because you can roll.
faster.
Like there's just no need for it really.
Mm-hmm.
You can eventually get it right, but that reminds me too with the spin attack. It's another thing of feeling slow. It takes just a little bit longer to charge up than like the most common spin attacks in Zelda.
Seeing that, but then later on you get the ability where it charges up faster.
Well, the meter's different. You can still do the spin attack if you haven't filled up that meter.
Okay.
But it's just to go from holding your sword to spinning.
Okay.
Just takes like a second longer, and it drives me nuts because you've seen me play a lot of games, and our staff member Josh always comments like, "You're always spin attacking." And this, I can't spin attack because it's like it's excruciaingly slow. So
okay.
It just makes more sense to just run up and hack away.
I don't like this meter either. With the
for...
splitting, it just takes a little too long.
Is there? I don't know. What's the reason for it? What does it prevent? There's got to be a gameplay reason.
Well, I mean, they didn't want you to be. I don't know, because when you fully charge the meter, that's only when there's blocks connected, like when you're duplicating Link. But a little too slow, but that's a really bit of a minor gripe. But then you get an upgrade later to make it go faster. So it's like, I think everything is like, it's rather than like adding new stuff, it was like, let's pull stuff away and then give them back to you over the course of time, which felt weird. That being said, I do like the items, but they all, virtually every single one of them gave me a Twilight Princess vibe.
Yeah.
Where this is designed for this dungeon and this dungeon only, and it has only extremely specific uses where it doesn't work like anywhere other than that.
Yeah.
Like the Dominion Rod is like, or the spinner. Right. Like, and I felt that way with like the Cane of Baki and the mole mitts.
Yeah.
Like, and like the flame lantern.
There's a couple spots you can use them for sure, but yeah, I felt like that is a factor. I felt like they did a good job of, like Twilight Princess, making them all unique and like somewhat fun in there. Like the puzzles are all great with those, but then like just the like mechanics of using them, I never really got super into. Like I didn't find myself using the jar outside of like when you really have to, because it just didn't feel right to me.
It's another one that it just takes a little too long to suck things in.
Yeah,
like it needs more to be instantaneous.
I told you that I use the gust one in Skyward Sword all the time when there's the sand, because it's just like feels good. I got to do it. Whereas in this, it's just like, it's not worth it. It's not worth my time to do this. So
yeah.
And then I don't know, some like the cane, that doesn't really excite me. It's not really fun to use. I don't know. There's even the moments. It's like cool from a progression perspective, but yeah.
It reminds me of games where you get the power bracelet as a dungeon item, and I kind of talked about that last time.
But even then, if we're talking about Link's Awakening, like I get the power bracelet, and going back to the progression, I immediately think like, oh yeah, I can go here, and there. Like with the moments, I know there are spots now. I have learned that there are spots that you can go use them, but I'm not like, aha. It almost feels like you always have to go into a cave somewhere and there's a little moments puzzle.
Right. Yeah.
But it doesn't change like how you navigate the world, and so I just don't feel like this is like something I always have by me, and I'm like always ready to use it.
Right. Yeah.
It's like, there's another one of those items that I can basically not think about anymore,
Yeah. And with I think with 2 of the 5 dungeons, the items being mole mitts and the flame lantern is,
it's just a lantern, and
that's kind of like, that's usually like an intro. Like I
that's
think of a Link to the Past.
A Link to the Past,
you
or
get
a Link
like
Between
6
Worlds.
seconds into your run.
Yeah, for that to be like one of the later dungeons. I guess there's not that many dungeons though.
Yeah. So now that I think about it, this might be a very generous 3, because I don't really like the abilities or the item. I gave it but I will say I do like Rock's Cape in the late game. I don't think it's as satisfying as the Pegasus Seeds and Rock's Cape and Oracle of Seasons. Yeah, but there is something to be said about it's the same feeling when there's the wind geysers. You know, like in
Yeah.
and you go with the Rock's cape with the wind behind you,
Yeah.
and the wind beneath your wings.
I just wanted to like. I feel like the rolling should have not been in here, and jumping should have been
More prominent
early on, because that's what's great about Link's Awakening and the Oracle games is like you get Rock's feather, and it just feels great to jump around, and oh boy. In this, it's like it's not until the end of the game where like finally now you can do some jumping.
Yeah. You get to do the jump down thrust move.
That's cool. Imagine if you could do that.
Right. That's a
know.
really late. I think that's the last Tiger Scroll. One of the last ones.
That is
the Hurricane Spin. I think is the last one. But
right.
Okay. Let's move on to the dungeons of of Michigan. Very thematic. Would you say?
Yeah, they did a good job with like making them all feel kind of distinct, and again with the items feel like these very unique uses within them. There's a good mix of types of dungeons. Like there's a couple that are a bit more non-linear. There are a couple that are my like less favorite Twilight Princess style, where you're just looping
to the main room over.
But they trick you into making you think, "Ooh, I've been in this room before."
Right.
But you have, but it's like it doesn't matter. It doesn't actually. You're just following a path. But anyway, those are fun too. Like there's no need to like not have that too. I actually think there should be a mix. But I do think like could have used just a couple more maybe styles, or like maybe an extra dungeon or two that maybe had another distinct type of navigation. Like I feel like we had a good intro dungeon, we had some good like more linear dungeons, and we had a good like non-linear dungeon in there.
Which one? I mean, the Fortress of Winds is a little non-linear. Well, like you have options of where to go.
Yeah, that's a good one, I think.
Yeah.
That feels like that reminded me of the other Capcom games in terms of style. And then there was more that reminded me of just like Twilight Princess or Wind Waker.
I would say all the other ones are you can only do point 1, like you can only go from point 1 to 2 to 3.
I think Deepwood Shrine has some non-linearity too.
With some of the extra stuff, yeah.
Well,
right.
I think there's a couple like key choices and stuff like that there too.
Okay.
Like I think there's a little bit there. I can't quite remember, but go watch our video on that.
Yeah.
But I think it's good. That's a great intro, obviously. So yeah, but I feel like I wanted it to like ramp up a little bit more, because the last dungeon is the Dark Hyrule Castle, and it just does that same kind of thing. Later on in the dungeon, it gets a little non-linear, and I thought that was cool that it starts linear and gets non-linear. But I don't know. I just wanted like a dungeon to like remind me of like some of the later Oracle ones, especially because Capcom made it, and just go nuts with it. You know.
Okay.
You're just like, where do I go? You know?
In fact, maybe this was more of a response to that, where there's the complexity of some of these late dungeons. They're not as like not many people I think are getting lost. They're long, and some of them are pretty difficult. But I don't know if there's some tricky parts in it, but I don't think it not as much as some of their Capcom's prior puzzles. I felt like
the first Winds dungeon,
Fortress of Winds,
was like, oh, this is a cool step up, right? But then it's followed by the Temple Droplets, which is cool. There's a lot of cool puzzles, but it is loop, loop, loop. And then it's followed by the second Winds dungeon, and it's just extremely linear, extremely long. And I don't know. I don't think it's interesting as much. It's fine for what it is, but they go back up, I think, a little bit with Dark Hyrule Castle, especially thematically, and like tying the story into that one in a cool way, where you're like talking to the characters in the dungeon, and I like that enough. But
I will say lack of creativity with the elements here. There's 6 dungeons in this game, and one of them is Fortress of Winds, and one of them is Palace. I understand it's because of the particular element you're looking for, but I mean
that's where I meant, like I felt like the story was like extended a little bit, where it was like you go and they're like, you beat the first Winds, and they're like, actually we're not here, we're here, your princess is in another castle. Just like, if you could have come up with another reason and had it like maybe a couple more, like in a Zelda game. It doesn't have to be like every Zelda game, but you know, where it's like actually there's a few more things you gotta discover.
Yeah.
You know.
I like the dungeons. I would say my major critique actually is just there's only 6 of them. Okay. I would like there to be a couple more.
Yeah.
It's a bit short on the dungeon, but I don't think there's any stinkers in here.
No,
I think they're all okay, and some of them are really good.
Really good, yeah. Deepwood Shrine, good intro.
Yeah. I think we should do a video just on Deepwood Shrine.
That's good idea.
Let's talk about the enemies and bosses.
Okay.
So this is our first
disagreement.
Our first like major distinction here.
Yeah.
So this goes to what I just said too. There's only 6 dungeons in this game.
Oh, okay. So you're just saying not enough.
Well, it's got like this like Skyward Sword feeling too, where you're like, oh, 2 of the bosses are Chuchus. Like,
no.
Well, one's a mini boss.
One's a mini boss. That I will not have that.
Okay.
All the bosses are different.
Yeah. I liked when we first saw the Green Chuchu in Deepwood Shrine.
Yeah.
And then later on you see the big Octorok. I like how these like very simplistic enemies are like these giant threats when Link is little.
Sure.
But like I just like I'm not like that. First of all, I like the big Octorok. That battle is awful though. I really don't like fighting him.
Okay.
I never understand what I'm doing really, and why I can sometimes get around him and sometimes I can't.
Really you get him to spin, and then you go the other way, and he like spins out a little bit. It's not that bad.
There's Glee Rock.
Yes, I like that one a lot.
Okay,
that's one of my favorite bosses. I think in the game at least.
Okay,
I've played it many times before. I think I've struggled with it many times before, but this time I didn't really. But I found the act of like running away from him, trying to actually get to the side of him so you can hit him, and then run up him. I don't know. It felt good. It felt fun. Like I was rolling and it made sense because they had this long stretch of land. It didn't feel awkward except when I'm not trying not to hit fire. But I don't know. That one was my favorite one. I think.
Yeah. We got Mazel, I believe his name is.
Yes.
Or Mazel or Mazar, from the Fortress of Winds, the First Winds dungeon.
That was another one of my favorite ones in the game.
Okay.
I have those 2 written. I wrote 3 notes and one was to remember those 2. I think it's the best version of that type of boss. The
dual-handed face.
Yeah, because there's something a little bit more to it. Like I find like Bongo Bongo and is fine, and then what's his name in Wind Waker? Godon. A little too simplistic. But this one had that extra element of going inside and finding the right thing to hit. Like I don't know, that was enough for me to like put it over the top a little bit.
Okay.
And it was pretty fun. And just in 2D shooting with the arrows.
Yeah.
I felt was a little bit more challenging than like just Z targeting.
Okay.
You know. So I liked it. I liked it a lot.
I like the name is eluding me right now, but the boss of the Ancient Ruins in Oracle of Ages is a very similar.
Oh,
dual,
sure.
Which is a fun one. Anyway, I think the highlight to me is probably the Georg pair.
That's a very creative.
It's called the
Georg pair. Yeah, George pair.
George pair.
George pair.
It's just fun because I think it has a lot to do with the Rock's Feather. Although there is the annoyance of the charging and having to wait so you can duplicate and getting hit while you're charging. And
it usually kind of works in this because you want I'll usually do some dodging first, and I like that, and also what ends up happening with the later Vati fight where you have to do a similar thing.
Yeah,
it's actually a good use of that. So
did you like the boss gauntlet basically at the end with the versions of Vati?
I've always found that kind of stressful because if you die you go all the way back.
Well, you got to fight the Dark Nuts first, which were really the harder of the bunch. I think a little bit annoying where you have to shoot the arrows, and then it's really that charging thing that makes it frustrating to me, where you have to align it without the rocks falling, and then he's shooting there's a bit of a challenge to it. And you know what? Kudos, because this is actually, I would say, one of the more difficult final selection of bosses.
Yeah, they're all like a decent challenge. I particularly liked the first part of the Vati fight when he's got the eyes around him. It felt very like classic Zelda
Okay.
boss. It just reminded me of like it just kind of has the look of like a Legend of Zelda or a Link to the Past kind of fight, which I love. So, and I liked, hitting the eyes to make the lasers go away.
Okay.
And it's cool villain, cool final boss. So yeah, I gave it high marks because I just ended up having, there wasn't a lot of them, but I just did have a lot of fun fighting them.
Okay. I think I just don't agree necessarily. We didn't talk about the enemies too much there, but
I don't like the moblins. I'll say that. Actually, I don't. There's a lot of enemies that I just don't have any feelings about. Like this for me is purely boss like carrying this because like
wow,
I mentioned in the Deepwood video, I hate those guys who start freaking
the
out.
bulldozers, I think.
What are those like? And then none of the other ones feel like totally. I just don't think. Like when I see a rope or something in the original Legend of Zelda, I'm like, look at that guy, he looks so cool.
There's ropes in this one too, but
are there?
Yeah.
Oh,
there's some in Castor Wilds, I believe.
Or when I see like a Dark Nut in Zelda 2, I'm like, or Iron Knuckle or whatever, I'm like, look at this guy, it looks so great, it looks so cool. And this is like. You got the slugs. You got those, like those cat things with daggers. Is that what they are?
Keatons, I believe.
Keatons?
Yeah.
Oh, Keatons. Nice.
Because they're like Keaton from...
I don't know. They just don't do anything for me. Even with, I was saying, the art style grew on me. Like, I still was just like, most of the normal enemies, I was like, yeah, whatever. They're just like fodder.
Yeah. I like Dark Nuts, actually. I do. I think
cool.
fighting them is weird and awkward, but I like their design, and they look...
That might actually be an exception for me of what I said about the Wind Waker designs not carrying over. Like, those look pretty cool.
I feel that the 2D Dark Nuts in this game are like a 2D version of the 3D Lynels from Breath of the Wild, where they're just so much stronger than any of the other enemies, and they're actually like a threat, whereas most of the enemies are not threats. And
it's kind of cool to see like the Dark Nuts in 2D, and it's actually like there's some logic to the way they're acting. It's not just like they're just marching around and you gotta like it's like almost like you're not there.
I like that because they only can go in 4 directions, right?
Exactly. Yeah, that's my impersonation. I'm working on some other good enemy impersonations.
Okay. I just think in the grand scheme of the Zelda series, when I think of my favorite bosses and some of my favorite enemies, not that much comes from Minish Cap.
Okay, yeah. Maybe I'll this might be like another score I regret later. Who knows?
You will regret it. All right, let's talk about the side content and extras. This was the lowest mark for me. Also the lowest mark for both the community and the staff.
Okay.
And you as well. So we all don't like the side content.
You're more the side content thing. I'll be honest with a lot of the games that like there's a lot of games that we've done, not all of them, but a lot where the side content just doesn't ever grip me that much. And so, I'm usually like 3. It's fine, but that's not why I'm playing it.
Okay.
But then there are other games that compel me to get more. This one I went more okay because there was just a lot of stuff where I was like, clearly I was like, I am not doing this. Like,
okay.
And I wasn't that necessarily mad on it. It's still like, this is fine, but it's like the seashell trophy collecting. I'm like, okay, I don't care about doing this.
Yeah.
It's probably fun for someone, but I think
it's fun for nobody, actually.
Okay. Same thing with like there was some cool stuff that opened up with like the kinstones.
Okay.
And I was like, it doesn't speak to me. And I mentioned with the town, like just going to a lot of places and then being like, can't do this yet. I'm like,
yeah.
Maybe it's supposed to evoke like a feeling of like, oh boy, I can't wait till this opens. But instead I was like, okay, I'm just not gonna do it.
So like the base extras here, there are a lot of heart pieces, which I like. Yeah, I'm a big fan of the heart piece.
Yeah.
There's like 40 of them or something, so there's a lot to get. So that
Twilight Princess strategy right there.
That's good. I think the kinstones are okay. I'm gonna say that okay at best. I don't like the randomness of it.
Okay.
I would have rather personally where there's 100 kinstone fusions you have to make to complete the game to get everything. But the thing is, the green kinstones in particular, most of the green, some of the red and blue are set, only a handful of them, but the greens are random. So I can fuse with you, and then 10 minutes later come back and fuse with you again, and you can fuse like 6 times with the same character actually, and at different points of the game, and it's random whether you can fuse with them, and then it opens up like random locations in the overworld. Everything is RNG. It's that's okay, I guess, but like I would have rather like if there was like set like person A fuses with B and it opens up C, like if it was more set. But it's okay. I like whenever something opens up. Although most of the time stuff would open up. Like I would get something on my map, but I like it's for later in the game and I can't get there. I don't know if that happened to you a lot.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, there's some of that. A lot of times I just didn't. I was like, I'm not gonna go check.
But the problems with the side content come with the one. I don't think the Kinstones are great. Let me be clear. They're okay. But there's a lot of content that's awkwardly placed here. For one, there's the light arrows that you can just totally miss, because you are required to do a specific Kinstone fusion with a specific character before going to the Royal Crypt. If you wait until afterwards, that's gone, and you just can't get the item. So this is, I think, the only Zelda game. This is one of the only things where an actual item cannot be gotten if you progress too far in the game.
Yeah, I don't know.
Which is really, to me, that's never a good thing.
I didn't get them.
Furthermore, do you know you can get the mirror shield in this game?
I've heard about that, yeah.
Do you know how you get it? Like
it's like post-game content?
Yeah, post-game content. That's
actually cool.
But it has zero use. It's purely a novelty. There's no like enemy
okay.
Like, not that it's post-game content. You don't really need a big use, but it's like it's not like a fun item. It has no real practical use.
I see.
I don't think it actually does anything.
Okay.
Now I think about it. Maybe it deflects enemy attacks.
It'd be maybe
or
cool
something.
if you unlocked like a boss gauntlet or something. Just something you could have fun with. I get it.
Right. And then last but not least is the far and away the worst collectible in the entire Legend of Zelda series are the seashell / figurines.
Really?
It's awful. It is.
What's so awful about it? You gotta tell me, because I was collecting seashells and I was like
what
I don't know what I'm
for?
supposed to do this, and then like later in the game I finally went, because like I said, I was discouraged from like going in houses I didn't need to, but then I was like doing maybe the book thing or something. I was like, which house do I go in? And I just stumbled upon this, and then it's like, oh, now I've got to spend like forever cashing in these seashells.
Well, forever is a good term, because so how it works is I think there's like 130 something figurines to collect. But the thing is, you can only get them after you've actually seen them in the world. So, for example, there is a figurine for the Georg pair, but you can't actually get that one until after you've beaten the Palace of Winds. Similarly, there are ones for Vati, and so this is post-game content too, because you have to beat the game to actually get them all. So how it works is you have a seashell. If you've never gotten any figurine, you give it to Karlov, same character from Wind Waker, and he's like, oh, you can trade in one of those, and then you have to go pull this lever. And because you have none of them, it's like, oh, it's a 100% chance you're going to get a figurine you don't have. And then you get one. Now it's like, okay, there's only, let's say, 90 in the wild that you need, but you have one of them. So there are 89 out of 90 you need. So it's like you go trade in another seashell. It's like, oh, it's like a 98% chance you get a new one. So this is fine, because you're always going to get a new figurine. But then eventually these odds get to like 70%. And then like how it works is, for every additional seashell you want to trade in, the percentage goes up by 1. So if it's like 50%, so if you have 40 out of the 80, let's just say, so you go to give 1, it'll say it's a 50% chance. If you give 50, it'll be a 100% chance of getting a new figure. So you need a bazillion seashells if you want to do this like easily, but you don't have them because it maxes out at $9.99. So not only that, but it takes like 20 seconds to do every single figurine pull.
Yeah, that's where I was like, I'm never coming back here.
So if you want to do this without like getting an infinite amount of seashells, like you're like wasting hours and hours and hours doing this. It takes much longer to do this than I would say even the camera figurines from the Wind Waker.
Yeah.
And that one at least is a little fun, at least because you get
I was thinking about that one, and it's again not something that I would ever do, but I at least conceptually get the idea of I took the picture of the thing and now I made it. It feels like you did the work.
You've accomplished something here, yeah.
This is just like, it feels like Well, it's like a gotcha thing where it's like, yeah, I'm just turning in the seashells, hoping I get it.
Yeah. This is like as a kid, if you ever like put a quarter into one of those machines.
Right, that's the intent too, you know.
And it's literally what this is. And it's like I used to collect the little baseball caps for all 30 teams. And I'm putting a quarter. Oh, God, this is the 8th Baltimore Orioles ones that I have. I need that, New York Yankees, whatever. Like, I felt
Maybe
that
they
way.
should have just had those throughout the world.
Just collectible figurines,
just
like in
the little things like you find at the store, but in different spots, and different ones have different likelihoods.
Oh boy, wow!
To match the area. I'm inventing the next collectible in Breath of the Wild 2. Minish Cap 2, actually, that's what I'm working on.
So not only that, but there is content locked behind getting all of the seashells.
Oh, okay.
So if you want 100% the game, you got to get all the seashells to get the heart piece, and then there's the phonograph store where you can listen to the soundtrack.
Oh, that's cool.
So, but it's like all this stuff is awkwardly locked behind weird things, post-game content.
Some of that stuff's just like you just can't come here yet, but it doesn't really feel like, oh, now I can go check it out.
Yeah,
that's how I felt. So
this is one of those things that we had mentioned like 15 years ago. I played this, so I've never 100% this game on the Game Boy Advance. When I just played it, but on computer. When I use an emulator, you can hold the spacebar, so it goes at like 300% speed or something. Okay. So then I was able to pull this lever, like instead of taking 25 seconds or whatever per every lever pull, it would take 5 seconds, and then it's like, okay, like I can do this in an hour instead of 5 hours or whatever.
See. Wow.
So this is bad. It's really bad.
Wow.
Actually.
Okay. Fine. I'll take your word for it.
But this is extra content though, so like it's whatever.
That's why I can never go too bad with it, unless it like is harming the game, which I guess it kind of did, because it went along to me with the exploration where I was like, I don't feel like.
I would say like in terms of frustration of 100%ing the game, this might be number one actually. Maybe the Rings and the Oracle games is a little because of that, but this is that at least you're doing something. This one you're not.
Some of the other content too that this has affected it a little bit more for me was like the scrolls. Where I was like, like again, someone were like, I just want the ability to run with my sword out. Like that should just be a thing. Like that shouldn't be a collectible. But
those are okay. I don't feel it. And there's also some other like cool quests with like, I love how there's the little quests where there's Din, Nehru, and Faror, and they're like, we're moving to town and we need to find a house. And
it kind of adds to the town a little bit.
Well, I like how you can get Din a town and you can get Nehru a town, and Faror doesn't have a town, a house. I mean, and it's kind of a throwback to the previous Capcom games.
Yeah.
Din gets their own game, Nehru gets their own game. Faror, sorry, you're the Oracle of Secrets. You don't get a game.
I thought of another random little thing I like. There are a lot of like little grottos and spots you can find in the world with some stuff to find, like any Zelda game, and they're all pretty fun. But I like this game has like some of the best conspicuous bomb spots. Okay. There's just a lot of spots where they don't use the cracked walls, so it's not obvious, but they'll do the thing where they like put a rock here and a rock here. And you go, interesting. And there's a lot of that, or sometimes where the wall just goes in a little bit, and you can bomb it and find stuff there. And I think that is actually like a cool throwback thing to like be more similar, like A Link to the Past or Legend of Zelda, where like bombing things actually was a factor, because I think that's a lost art in Zelda. Now it's so obvious and it's taken for granted. And I liked that they were like just conspicuous enough, like you could like your eyes could glaze over it and you could miss it. But I actually found that kind of charming. So change it to a 3.
Editor, let's go. All right. Last but not least, the music and sound. Oh, this has been a tough one for me.
This has been like a point of contention. This has been one of the big debates.
Yeah. So to our YouTube guys, this will sound like a new point, but to the people in the Zelda Dungeon community, I'm going to sound like a broken record here. But I always view the music, and I don't know if this has more to do with the Game Boy Advance limitations than anything.
We were trying to figure it out.
It just sounds unclean. It sounds like I'm listening to like AM radio. That's always the term, because it's like. It's just like you're not getting
fuzzy.
It's that fuzz. It's like the signal is bad. Like, and this is like I've looked at other Game Boy Advance soundtracks to like see, is this unique to Minish Cap, and it's definitely not unique to Minish Cap. It is in other games, but it's the worst in the Minish Cap. If you go like I Google search or YouTube search like the top 50 Game Boy Advance soundtracks, Minish Cap is in there, and like you're just jumping around, and it's like it's just that. It's like you're listening under a waterfall.
Certain instruments have that quality, and
So like I think the music itself, some of them are. I love some of the tracks. I like the Cloud Tops theme. I like the Castor Wilds theme. Hyrule Town is pretty fun. The intro.
I like the town.
The intro festival theme is pretty fun.
Some of the like
Dark Hyrule Castle's nice too.
Some of like the story beat music is cool. And then one that stuck out to me was the it's like the chamber, or what's it called? It's like where you go up and it's like mystical sounding.
Oh, when you're getting the sword abilities.
Yes. What's that called? What's that place called? Chamber of Sages. That's what I went to from Ocarina. Yeah. But yeah, there's I always liked. I think that was a standout when we did seasons too, where I like really like some of these. I think those lend themselves well to these like 8-bit or not 8-bit, but these more beeps and boops kind of soundtracks. I guess.
Right. I also like Minish Woods and Minish Village. Both of those were standouts to me. I feel at the end of the day though, like the music is good, but like if this game ever got like a Link's Awakening treatment, where it took the same music and just gave it a polish,
like it could.
This could be a top soundtrack.
Because we're talking music and sound, and you're just saying you don't like the sound.
The sound is the big problem. Yeah,
when we talk about this, I can't quite put my finger on it either, and I sort of see where you're coming from with it. But yeah, for me, it was more like there's a lot of likable music in this. Like a lot of the ones we named are all pleasant sounding songs, but they just maybe it's just because it's not one that I've spent a lot of good quality time with, but like a lot of them just don't stick with me that much. They didn't elicit much of a reaction. Actually reminded me a little bit of Twilight Princess again, where this is a lot of nice sounding music, but it doesn't pop like other Zelda soundtracks. I don't know what it is,
Okay.
It's missing something, but none of it's bad. So I said it was good. So
our overall ranking, let's finally jump into it.
Yes.
Surprisingly, Minish Cap was almost straight down the board, 5th place for most of it. So the community, it tied with Oracle of Seasons, but it was fractional points ahead.
Okay.
With the staff, it was clear right there in 5th place. So the community and staff, the bottom 5 games are all bam, 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 bam in the exact same order.
Wow.
For me, it ended up with a complete tie with Wind Waker.
Okay.
For my 4th place game at this point. And at the end of the day, I think I have more fun playing the Minish Cap than I do the Wind Waker.
Okay.
The Wind Waker seems like work to me, like sailing around the world. So I gave the Minish Cap a nudge above. That being said, like I'm looking at my list right now, and these bottom 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games, maybe 6 games, might end up being the bottom 6 games when the entire list is done.
Okay.
So like I
could see that for myself maybe too. Maybe.
I think the order of operations that we've kind of collectively, it's been random a little bit, have picked these. So like I've got this whole cluster of games in the mid 2s that I think like as we play some of more of the games that are more heavy hitters to me are going to be in the upper echelon of my games.
Well, that'll be exciting to like start filling that out, I think. Do you feel like, does Minish Cap in your mind make sense where it is on the list? Like interpreting it as like what you actually feel?
I would have said Adventure of Link is better, but when we threw it through the machine, like
we got the point off though. You could,
Yeah, they're close, but
we could work around that.
Yeah, I would say to me, Minish Cap, Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, that trio has always been like the lower end of my list, and I guess Spear Tricks, when we threw it through the machine, is in that group too. So those are the 4. Like to me, ranking the major Zelda games, I would put those as 16, 15, 14, or whatever. And the numbers, they came out to be something similar.
For me, I'm like, it makes a lot of sense. Like I kept joking before that I was like, oh, I'm gonna give it all 3 straight across the board. because I just think it's. I think I might have said it when we ranked it before that it's like the most fine, the most okay Zelda game ever. Like, you know, not a lot of it really jumps out or like speaks to me, and so I almost find it here on my list as a dividing line between games that I think are like really good, and then like ones that I think are just like kind of okay or like have their flaws or whatever. Okay. And this one's like, when I think of the Minish Cap, I just think like, yeah, that's a solid game, but it, you know, it's nothing more.
Right. Yeah.
It's just below Seasons, which was another game that I was like, yeah, good game, but things can be better. You know,
might be the best game I've ever played in the Game Boy Advance. I've played like 8 games on the Game Boy Advance. The best game
I've ever played on Game Boy Advance was Super Mario Brothers 3.
Oh no, that kind of remakes, like even like A Link to the Past or
that was my Game Boy Advance game.
Yeah, yeah. So tell us, what are your favorite Game Boy Advance games, and where does Minish Cap rank in there?
How many Pokemon games do you put above it?
Oh, I skipped the Pokemon games on the GBA.
Yeah, me too. So.
That was not. The GBA was. Okay, you know, one thing I like now that we've got more games, it's like, so Minish Cap has been like, is like 5th place, 4th place, whatever, but like, you see how other games on these lists have kind of spread out, where like Twilight Princess is still the #1 game for the community, and right up there with the staff, but like on our list now it's, you know, with more games on the list.
It's quite a difference, yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to continue to see some of that, because next month we are covering, I think, one of your favorite Zelda games.
Yeah.
Maybe even your favorite.
Could actually be. I don't know anymore.
We're covering The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. In particular, we're going to cover the 3D version here.
Yes.
So everything we talk about will be Majora's Mask 3D.
Yeah.
So I don't think we'll ever cover regular Majora's Mask. I'm
not sure. I don't think
Apparently
so.
that's controversial, the 2 versions.
Yeah,
we didn't know
learned that recently, but that's okay. That's okay. We'll people can interpret it however they want. Even I don't care.
So the poll is open. It is for Majora's Mask 3D, but if you've only played Majora's Mask, that's fine.
It's not a huge difference.
Yeah.
Some might say it is.
But some diehards
might say it. I don't know.
But so go ahead and vote in the poll, and we'll be covering Majora's Mask for the month of September. But thanks for watching, and we will see you guys next month.